Well, good afternoon, Father Adrian. Welcome to this session with me, Brother Ilo SJ, and Father Adrian as well, sa Jesuit. So, to know more about himself, I asked him to introduce a bit about his personality and country and his currently mission now. So, Father, once again, good afternoon and welcome.
Thank you so much, Brother Elo, and it's a great honor to be here and have a conversation about who I am and what my mission is all about currently. So as far as who I am is concerned, I'm Father Edrian Makasa Chikwamo SJ, a Jesuit priest from Zambia originally, but the last 5 years I've served in South Africa, doing campus ministry in a public university called the University of Cape Town, and I've also worked as assistant parish priest at St. Michael's Parish, Rondebosch in Cape Town. So I've pretty much enjoyed a lot of hearts in ministry, working in campus ministry, accompanying young people. But then I've also done a lot of pastoral work, with my attachment to a very big parish and in Cape Town. Yeah. Um, currently, currently, I am here in the Philippines doing what we call tertianship. Yeah, I've been missioned to the Philippines here and under the guidance of Father Mon and Father Pri. Yeah.
So Father, what specialization do you have as a Jesuit, Father?
Right. Besides my formation as a priest in philosophy, humanities, and theology, I did postgraduate studies in ecological economics, and so my area of interest is pretty much biodiversity, environmental sustainability, and I had the opportunity to work in the area of climate change and sustainable development in Malawi for a good 5 years before I switched to doing campus ministry and pastoral work in Cape Town. Yeah.
So Father, tell me about what because you mentioned about tertianship program. So what is tertianship program in the Jesuit formation, Father?
Right. So tertianship, it's of course that word sounds very technical and quite unique to the Jesuit language. Um, in a layman's language, you can say tertianship is a second novitiate, in the formation of the Jesuit. So as some people would know, we have about four key stages in forming a Jesuit priest. We start with novitiate, and one progresses into philosophy, which is sometimes integrated with what we call juniorate, where somebody is called upon to learn, about the world and human beings, to basically understanding the world. And then one progresses into what we call regency, which helps a man in formation to integrate apostolic work, but also, the intellectual formation and living in a Jesuit community. After that third stage, we move to theology. Theology, one gets ordained, and after ordination, 2-3 years of active apostolic work, we get sent into the final stage of formation called tertianship, which is also known as the school of the heart. After all the labor and toil, that is just a good thing that one sort of moves to the slow lane and begins to reflect on, what is Jesuit spirituality, and what is it that's the law and the rules that guide our life and mission as Jesuits. So we basically, moving to the slow lane and getting to understand deeper the Jesuit identity, but also the Jesuit mission, as it is rooted in its fundamental documents of the Society of Jesus.
So, Father, I'm curious about you mentioned about the school of the heart. So, like, for example, like in philosophy studies and theology studies, maybe it's about school of the mind. But
Mm-hmm.
now you mentioned about like school of the heart. Can you tell a
Mm-hmm.
bit about what is really about the school of the heart?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the heart is really the home of the human person.
Mm,
It is within the heart that we experience encounters with the divine, and so basically when we talk about the school of the heart, it is that time when one wants to rediscover their first love with
mm,
the Lord, and how the Lord invites us to be part of his mission, the mission of serving souls,
mm,
of serving humanity. And so it is basically a time that we are aided to get back to our first love for the Society
mm,
of Jesus, for St. Ignatius, and for the love of the mission and identity
mm.
of the society.
So talking about this internship, one of the program is about the immersion. So now you just came back from the mountains in the Philippine province. So can you tell a bit about how does your immersion in the lives of the poor and marginalized shape your understanding of Jesuit apostolate and mission in Chad, Father?
Right. Well, that's a very good question. Which borders on the value of immersion.
Mm,
Um, there's a way that situatedness, getting into the lives um, of the people, especially those in unfortunate situations, the people on the margins.
mhm,
There's the way that when we get to interact with 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 the poor people, we sort of get converted
mhm,
ourselves, in the sense that for some reason, if you go to the biblical tradition, God has always been the friend of the
the
poor,
poor.
of the marginalized, of the unawares,
Mhm,
those, people who are considered less significant
mhm,
in our own communities and society. um, and that immersion always provides us an opportunity to empathize,
mhm,
to encounter the Christ who lives among the poor. While Jesus Christ walked on the face of the earth, his friends were the marginalized. And as I said, from Old Testament, God has always associated himself with the underprivileged, the unawares.
mhm,
And so immersion helps us to really have an encounter with the Lord, who is incarnate within the life of 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 the needy people, and that helps us to um, um, to serve
mhm,
better, but also to understand that our Jesuit vocation is not a vocation that is lived in abstract terms.
mhm,
It is a mission and an identity that has its historicity,
mhm,
that has context, um, and yeah, for me as a tertian, I found myself in Kalinga, in an apostolic vicariate called Tabuk. Um, yeah, it was a great moment for me.
mhm,
Really a time to encounter the
mhm,
Lord in the Kalinga
mhm.
people, very happy people. Yeah.
Father, you mentioned about our Jesuit life. We always encounter the reality, not the
Hmm.
abstract things,
Hmm.
but we always go and encounter with the people where we find God
Yeah.
in them. So in what ways does Jesuit apostolate invite you to find God in all things, especially in familiar cultures and communities? So because you come from Africa and then to the
Mhm.
Asian countries and different
Mhm.
culture, people, food, and all
Mhm.
sort of things that can be very different to each other.
Mhm.
So how do you find yourself in this
Mhm.
mission?
Mhm. Well, my, brother, you soon discover the fact that somebody said the whole world is our backyard
Mm,
as Jesuits, or the whole world is our parish. And I think that's one thing that helps us as Jesuits,
mm,
that understanding that we do not join a province. Even if we
mm,
join through a province, the Society of Jesus, we join a universal society.
mm,
And all people, are one community.
mm,
The global community. We share one humanity. So, in a sense, yes, there are those, differences, linguistic
mhm,
differences, racial differences, um, but when you reflect deeper, beyond, what the eye can see,
mhm,
we are all children of God,
mm,
and one people. Um, yes, there can be challenges in terms of language, and
mm,
communication, um, but there's one language that God has given us. It is the
mhm,
language of love. When
mm,
you love God, when you love his people, you
mm,
you will find your way
mm,
in any given community. And so for me, yes, in this beautiful Kalinga province, in the mountains, it was far away from home, but also quite near to
mm,
home. Especially, when I was greeted with, the warm, typical warm heart of the Kalinga people, very hospitable, very accommodating. You would not walk, 100 kilometers without hearing
mm,
somebody inviting you for
mhm,
cafe, coffee.
mm,
Um, and truly for me, that was gave me the feel of we
mm,
are one
mhm.
people. We all are God's children. Yeah.
Yeah, I really
Mm.
like what you mentioned about, we are all share one value.
Mm.
Is really love. Love
Yeah.
is the language of God, where we come to know each other and share the love that He has for us to each other. So I think, as you also mentioned about, Jesuit, we are not called to a single province or single community, but we are called to the whole world. So the
Mhm.
whole world is our home. So I
Mhm.
really like what you mentioned about, once
Mhm.
I feel, even I, coming from East Timor, so of course we are
Mhm.
still the Asian, but I still also consider that we
Mhm.
share the same languages, love. Of course, in
Yeah.
terms of food, languages,
Mhm.
cultures, traditions, it might somehow different,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we are called to one
Yeah.
uh, home, which
That's right.
is
That's right.
the common home, is
Yeah.
love, and the God that has given us. No? So,
Yeah.
Father, how does the experience of immersions, challenge your comforts,
Mhm.
prejudices, and
Mhm.
personal priorities in following
Mhm.
Christ?
Mhm. Yeah. The great philosopher Gadamer talked about how we are all shaped by our own horizons,
Mhm,
and those horizons are obviously made up of our own stereotypes, our own prejudices, um, and it is only when we are able to allow ourselves to encounter the other
mhm,
in what Gadamer would call a fusion of horizons,
mm,
that we will enrich our knowledge of the truth. Um, yeah, so um, my prejudices, of course, in that fusion, in that encounter, meet some sort of, a greater truth that is able to, to challenge my prejudices. And the invitation is always that we enter, that encounter, that fusion of horizon with an open mind, knowing so well that truth is perspectival. Truth is, it depends on where you stand. Um, and yeah, so when we get into that dialogue, that encounter with the other, we ought to be open-minded. And I think that's the mind with which I entered my immersion in Kalinga, in a place called Ting Lion, a very beautiful place, with beautiful sceneries. Um, there's one particular mountain. It's called the Sleeping Beauty. I would wake up and then just go to the parapet of the house and gaze at the Sleeping Beauty. This top of the mountain, and enjoying my time there, looking at the God who manifests Himself in the beauty of His creation. Um, it was really home away from home. Um, and yeah, truly, we could have all these prejudices, but for me, even if I was encountering people who are so somehow different from me in appearance, in the language, what I experienced there was love. Through that hospitality that I talked about, and that hospitality for me as a priest, created a space where true evangelization could take place. So beyond just the simple gesture of an invitation to a cup of coffee is actually a place of true evangelization. Because when you feel welcomed, then there is that opportunity to create a reasonable presence, a presence of Christ. You bring the Christ to somebody, and they present Christ to you. um, and in that space, really, we find our prejudices, that are offset in a way because of that encounter. Yeah.
So I was so interested, when you mentioned about, our life is shaped by the horizons, and also I think it's really about the context where we are. So even we're coming from different countries, but once you step in the country, we try to live in the real context of another countries with their cultures and traditions that helps us to not feeling like, of course we are like foreigners, where but we are always, as you have mentioned about, we are always share in the same mission, is love. So the reality that we encounter is really, we are encounter God in the reality
Yep.
itself, which is the people that
That's
we
right.
encounter. Or have you mentioned about finding God in all things through the beauties of the mountains, all the, all the environments, all the forest, that helps us to also to know that, oh, actually this is how God presents Himself through all this. So thank you very much
Exactly.
for this beautiful experience, no, Father. So you have been serving as campus ministries or on the school, right? And with all your degrees that you have. So now, like, you left everything behind, and then you go and face the reality, like living with the poor and experience the reality, which is somehow, for some people, it can be hesitated, like, oh, why I have this degree, I've lived a good life with this, now I encounter the different realities. So what changed, Father, within you when you experience or encounter this situation, especially in your immersion with the poor people? So is
Mhm,
there
mhm.
change there?
Um, yeah, I mean, it's always this comforting to come
Mm-hmm.
out of
Yeah.
your comfort zones. Areas where you really feel at home. In terms of places where you have a people you could share a common language, um, and moving into spaces that call you to um, leave those comfort zones.
Mm-hmm.
It can be very challenging.
Mm-hmm.
As you rightly pointed out,
Mm-hmm.
I am pretty much in my comfort zone when I'm
Mm-hmm.
working with young people. In a place like University of Cape Town, it's the university of the elite, the best university in Africa, and one of the best universities in the world. Um, yeah, so coming to Kalinga, it's a different world
Mm-hmm.
altogether. Yeah, but I think what was helpful for me, and what is always helpful for me as a Jesuit, um, is the fact that Saint Ignatius always wanted his men
Mm-hmm.
to find God in all things, in every situation. Um, and so for me, I will seek to encounter the Lord wherever the opportunity is. And I was going into this experience in Ting Lion,
Mm-hmm.
just after my long retreat, 30-day retreat. And so, obviously the experience of being loved by Christ, through the graces of that journey of the retreat, all that was very fresh for me. And one of the lessons that I came out of the retreat with is that I've been loved so much,
Mm-hmm.
and I need to love back and to
Mm-hmm.
love all that God loves. And for me, this was an opportunity to share that love of Christ with these people in Kalinga, in Ting Lion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also, one of the graces of that retreat was, an enhanced interior conversion.
Mm-hmm.
And, that enhances one's charity, one's generosity, the desire to serve, to set the world on fire,
Mm-hmm.
as it were. Yeah. And so for me, I was sort of, bubbling, with apostolic zeal, if you
Mm-hmm.
like. And so the Christmas ministries and the vicariate of Tabuk was just really an apostolic opportunity, to encounter Christ, but also to minister to
Mm-hmm.
his people in that part of the Philippines. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that, Father, that to go out of our comfort zone or to live out what we are already being comforted. So
Mhm.
sometimes it can be very challenges
Mhm,
then.
mhm,
But as you have mentioned about, we are called to go out. No,
mhm,
we the mission that Society of Jesus entrusted to us, I mean, it's not permanent. We're always
mhm.
on the move.
Yeah.
So wherever God calls, we are ready to, as I mentioned, set the world on fire. So,
Mhm,
and especially, he mentioned about, I received much of love from God, and
mhm,
then this the time I have to return
mhm,
this love back to God through serving other people. So I think that is a very good message that
mhm,
we have
mhm.
been loved, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
have to return this love to God
That's right.
through serving the people. So then, thank
Yeah.
you very much, Father. I think we almost to the end.
Okay. Okay.
So after the immersion, so helps what helps you to experience into a deeper commitment an action for justice in your formation, especially as a Jesuit and going through all these realities. So, what is the commitment that as a priest, as a Jesuit, you want to do, Father?
Yeah, you know, the defining character of our Jesuit mission is, of course, a faith that does justice. As our Father General Pedro Arupe, always emphasized. Ours is a mission of a faith that does justice. Our faith ought to show itself in our care for the poor and for the needy. And so for me, the reality of poverty, of simplicity in Kalinga has just sort of enhanced that understanding that indeed ours is a mission that does justice, and we ought to embrace that core of Vatican II. That says the cry of the poor, the anxieties of the poor are supposed to be the anxieties and the joys of those who follow Christ. Um, and yeah, so I feel even more reminded, so to speak, of that calling to be at the service of those who lie at the margins. And yeah, the whole experience of the Christmas ministries in the Apostolic Vicariate of Tabuk reminded me of the harvest that is so rich, and yet the laborers being so few. The entire vicariate, which is so vast, has only 26 diocesan priests and about 11 religious priests who are serving God's people. And so obviously, those stats um, a wake-up call, a wake-up call in the sense that we need to begin to think seriously about how we can sustain Catholicism in different places, especially places like Kalinga. There's need for obviously more investment in long-term strategic areas of vocation promotion, but also to emphasize collaboration and formation of partners in mission. A thing that our Father General constantly talks about nowadays. We cannot afford not to collaborate with the lay faithful in mission. And so obviously we ought to see how we collaborate in a stronger way with the lay faithful, the catechists, the sacristans, and all those people who work with us in various ministries. Yeah, yeah. So that for me was sort of an enlightenment. The call to collaboration, with our lay faithful, but also to take vocation promotion seriously, so that there will be more people who will buy into this mission of a faith that does justice. Yeah.
So, Father, as a Jesuit, for many years, you experience how joyful live as a Jesuit life. So, what message do you want to give to the young people who are discerning to join a Jesuit? Not mainly to the Society of Jesuits, but other congregations, diocesanes. What message do you want to give, Father?
Well, the message is simple. It is wonderful to serve the Lord, and so if you hear His word, harden not your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean, there's joy in serving the Lord. And so if you're a young man out there, considering, religious life, or at the crossroads, wondering whether shall I not, 23 years, 24 years as a Jesuit, I look back, and I think it's been a happy life, and I think it's it's a life worth considering. Yeah, to commit oneself to Christ and to His mission. Yeah, thank you.
So thank you very much, Father, for your wisdom, knowledge, and experience that you share in this channel. It will help me and other people to know more about your life, and especially your experience as a Jesuit. It will
Mhm,
inspire more young people
mhm,
to consider and discern this life. As you mentioned, when I look back,
mhm,
I feel happy and joy
mhm.
because serving the Lord. So thank you very much for your experience. So God bless for the. Thank you
Thank you
very much.
so much, and every
Thank you.
blessing.
Thank you for the.